With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hi, everyone. I'm Deb Flashenberg. Welcome to Yoga, Birth, Babies, a podcast produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. We will be diving into everything prenatal yoga, birth, and baby related, hoping to inspire, educate, and empower you through your journey into motherhood. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Deb Flashenberg, and I'm your host of Yoga Birth Babies. And today we're going to talk about sex and how to reconnect to your partner after you've had your baby. And I know this is a topic that many people want to hear. I brought this up recently in one of my postnatal yoga classes. And as I started to talk, the room got quiet and the eyes turned to me. And everyone wanted to know, when will this podcast be out? So I know it's a hot topic. So in this conversation, first of all, I'm speaking with Ashley Mariani. She is absolutely amazing. Let me tell you a little bit about Ashley, then I'll share what we talked about. So Ashley is a clinical social worker specializing in couples' perinatal, mental, emotional, and sexual health, while also fiercely advocating against obstetric violence. Ashley has seen the implications of birth trauma impact on the mental, emotional, and sexual lives of couples and strives to help couples and individuals in prevention and resilience building. Ashley's academic background includes degrees in sexuality, counseling, individual and couples work. The lens she works with most passionately is rooted in the body's innate wisdom, the nervous system. Ashley works with her clients from a holistic framework that utilizes movement, nutrition, plant medicine, vagus nerve toning, and functional medicine. She is quite the wise lady, and I really enjoyed this conversation. So we started in the foundation of understanding how newborns impact the relationship of parents. And then we start talking about attunement between the parents, reconnecting outside of sex. And then, we jumped right back into how new parents can navigate introducing sex and sensuality. It is a conversation that I think not only is it important for the relationship, but the way that Ashley speaks about where sex lies on the hierarchy. I love how she talks about that is at the top. And when you don't have the foundation, there's no way to get to the top. And she gives really great advice and support of creating the foundation and restructuring that foundation after baby comes for moving up to finding that reconnection. So I thought it was a great conversation. I think you will too. Now, before we get to my chat with Ashley, just going over what's happening at Prenatal Yoga Center. So, classes are still plowing forward, and I'm really proud to say, as we have rounded the corner of year 3 of COVID and things have really rebuilt, I'm really proud of the community and also of my team, of the teaching team, of the admin team, of the students that show up, of just everyone that has worked so hard to help us move through these 3 tumultuous years and come out, I'd even dare to say, stronger. We now have not only our community in studio, which is bustling and wonderful, and babies being born all the time, and smiling emails that I get with pictures, but our online community is pretty amazing. Just the other day in postnatal class, we had 2 people tuning in from Germany. We just finished our teacher training with somebody from Australia, and recently we had somebody from Dubai. It's just amazing where folks are tuning in from. So I just want to thank you for showing up and helping this community continue to thrive. So with that, we have classes online every single day. We have in-studio classes 6 days a week. We've got workshops on demand and live in the studio. We have our teacher training in person and online. And coming up pretty soon, we've got our once a year online postnatal teacher training. So much stuff happening, and it's for you, the listener. So thanks for being part of this community. All right, I think that's enough of me. Let's take a quick break and we come back. Please enjoy my conversation with Ashley.
This podcast is sponsored by Skylight Calendar. Let's be real. Running a household can be exhausting and chaotic. And finding the perfect Mother's Day gift, it's not exactly a no-brainer. Until now. The Skylight Calendar is the best way to organize the family and give everyone, especially mom, some peace of mind to enjoy the things that matter most. The Skylight Calendar is a smart, touchscreen calendar that keeps track of and manages the chores, dinner planning, groceries, and to-dos for the whole family. The Skylight Calendar automatically syncs each family member's digital calendars and displays them all together on one color-coded touchscreen. It even doubles as a digital picture frame, so you can finally share all those special moments that are just sitting on your phone. As a limited-time offer for our listeners, get 15% off your purchase of a Skylight Calendar when you go to skylightcal.com/easy. That's SKYLIGHTCAL.com/easy. Get 15% off your Mother's Day purchase now at skylightcal.com/easy.
Hi, Ashley. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you, Deb.
I'm really excited for you to be here, and we're going to dive into, when I mentioned this topic to my postnatal students the other day, they're like, yes, we need to talk about sex after baby reconnecting. And they asked when it'll be out. I'm like, well, I haven't recorded it yet, so, but soon enough. So this is a topic that perked up many ears. So I'm really excited to dive into this. But I guess before we get into our topic, I'd love to learn a little bit about you and how did you come to focus on specializing in couples' perinatal mental health and emotional and sexual health?
Yes. I mean, every therapist loves an opportunity to talk about themselves because we do a lot of listening and asking other people about themselves. So my name is Ashley Mariani. I am a clinical couples therapist specializing in postpartum sex and relationship for parents. I operate a holistic online clinic where we're always looking to add aligned, wonderful practitioners to our team. And our focus is on ensuring that couples have the support outside of the allopathic model that they're provided by their system, and that they know that bodily autonomy and choice will always be at the forefront of our value system. I started this journey with the plan to be a sex therapist. I took sexuality, marriage, and the family systems in undergrad, and I completed an honors year focusing on both kink and infidelity. And then I went on to complete a post-grad certification in applied counseling and then a master's in social work. So when I had my son in 2016, I toyed with the idea of having a home birth, but my mother-in-law, who is an experienced labor and delivery nurse, quickly kind of convinced me otherwise. And the team that I had was green. So my midwife was fresh out of school and was a little bit worried about stepping on toes. So not much advocacy happened for me. And I went through being verbally and emotionally abused by hospital staff and was coerced into a C-section and left to care for a new baby without a village in a city that I had moved to a year prior, which was very lonely and isolating. And I did develop postpartum mood and anxiety disorders and lots of distrust in my support system. And I decided from there that I no longer wanted others to feel the way that I had felt. So I focused a lot of my professional efforts to the perinatal mental health world and to show up for new parents in that way. And so I completed a certification from Perinatal Support International on maternal mental health. And although I love working with the population in that context of perinatal mental health, I identified for myself that there was something missing. So I did some deep reflection work and a lot of meditation. And I decided to go back to my roots of integrating sex therapy into my practice. So I went on to complete a sexual attitude reassessment coursework with Esther Perel and Sue Johnson to hone in my couples skills and to continue. And to this day, I continue to pull from their teachings. But the idea of bringing the maiden version of me into the motherhood version and intertwining all of it into this unique intersection of postpartum sex and intimacy has been an amazing journey.
Mm-hmm. And I can see while I was preparing for this and going off some of the talking points that you'd offered, and then I did some of my own diving into this, my own reflection, from hearing your story. And also recently did a podcast about birth trauma. I can see why reflecting on how the birth unfolded and birth trauma and the incredibly high amount of people that have it, why that needs to be part of this conversation about introducing sex and intimacy back into a partnership is so important.
Yes. They can't operate in silos.
Yeah. How did you feel your own, and I'm kind of throwing a curveball here, but how did you feel your own journey through processing your birth trauma and reconnecting to your partner affects how you work with people and couples?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because this kind of can be applied to a lot of other aspects, right? Like, can a therapist work with people who have experienced trauma when they've not experienced trauma? Mm-hmm. Can a therapist without children support parents through their parenting journey? And I think it creates this opportunity to understand that everybody's journey is so unique, and whatever preconceived understandings you had about a particular topic kind of get thrown out the window when you go through it yourself, because you just aren't expecting it. Mm-hmm. And so it's really wonderful to be able to hold space for people whose stories sound a lot like mine. And it's also really wonderful to hold space for people's stories that sound nothing like mine. And the relatability factor does show up in relationship with clients for sure. They can kind of pick up on my transparency on social media and know that, okay, so she has an understanding of kind of what we went through in this. And, you know, my way isn't the only way, and how I came through it isn't the only way, but sometimes it just means helping clients feel seen and heard and acknowledged in their journey when I can share a little bit about what I've gone through too.
And probably also safe in confiding in you. Although my husband's a therapist, so I hope that safety is always there with therapists, but I bet there is something just feeling like the relatability. I could see that being a big deal. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's pull back and kind of start from the beginning let's talk about how do you typically see a newborn impact the relationship of the parents?
Yes. So I think the word to kind of focus on in that question, not in that question, but the word to focus on when answering that question is expectations. And I think that new parents have expectations about how they have handled hardships in the past and how they assume hardships will be similar in the future or with a new baby. But right out the gate, especially if there's been birth trauma, there will be a rupture in the couple's relationship if there isn't a plan for a trauma-informed approach to the postpartum period. Because it usually takes, on average, I would say, months for a mother to get the validation that her experience was traumatic if there was birth trauma. And the relationship patterns have already been established at that point. Therefore, her partner is expecting things to only get better instead of get worse. Mm-hmm. So, we know that trauma causes a dysregulated nervous system. We also know that sleep deprivation and feelings of isolation and loneliness add to what might be an already dysregulated nervous system. And then we add the boundaries with new grandparents and the innate need to keep your baby from others. Soon we have this kind of recipe for breakdown. So a new parent is just as vulnerable as this fresh little baby. And the birthing partner's job is to be the line of defense between the outside world and that baby mother dyad. And that also might mean setting rigid boundaries with grandparents. And that also might mean taking on extra household tasks, and learning self-regulation skills in order to assess their birthing partner with co-regulation. So I think expectations and realizing that expectations might be too high going into becoming new parents and expecting that things will just fall into place and expecting that it will be easy to maintain communication, open communication, and it will be easy because we've been openly communicating up until this point to have ongoing discussions about hard topics. So really kind of allowing the experience to humble you and recognizing like, oh, none of these are meeting my expectations. And so we need to reevaluate here.
I like that. Expectations and open communication. I think that's key. And again, you're the professional here, but I think that's key in all parts of a relationship. Yeah. So what are some ways that new parents can start to then get attuned with one another? Because I can imagine, as you're just saying, there is there is this kind of chasm between everybody when baby comes, and the person that birthed the baby can feel very protective, and sometimes the expectations are not met. So how can people start to get attuned, especially creating some intimacy?
And attunement is such an important term, and I really love that you named it. And starting with the prenatal plans and advocacy and emotional attunement would be important. So if for those who don't understand what attunement is essentially how you obtain emotional safety. It's the uncanny ability to sense, understand, realize the other person's needs without explicitly having to verbalize those feelings. Being aware of what your partner is talking about, maybe how they're feeling, how they're conducting themselves, but in clear separation from codependence, where if those things are happening in the relationship and there is abuse of power and control, and as a result, one person is developing coping mechanisms to soothe the other, that would be a red flag for codependence. But we're talking about this nice ebb and flow of back and forth, just being so in tune with and aware of your partner's body language and nonverbal communication that you can kind of tap into what they're feeling. And if you want to improve your relationship and your intimate life with your partner, you have the responsibility for learning what's required. So some key elements to obtaining emotional safety and attunement are playfulness, curiosity, receptiveness, self-awareness and accountability, empathy, and respect.
I really love that you brought that up. My husband actually just had this conversation. I was telling him that he was not being attuned and to read the room. That was basically it. Like he came in with this idea and I'm like, read the room. It is not, nope. He's like, well, how am I supposed to read your mind? I'm like, read the room. You know me well enough, read the room. But it feels like as you described that, I'm like, that is exactly what we're hoping, that it's not about reading someone's mind, but it's knowing someone well enough to, like you said, look at body language, get a sense of the energy. What is that person? How are they appearing? If it's the person that you know the best, you don't need, in my opinion, verbal words necessarily. I think they I don't know, maybe it is a little reading on the mind, but I think when you know someone enough, there is that attunement. So I'm really glad that you brought that one up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, it's very obvious in a partnership when there's one partner who lacks a little bit of situational awareness. And that person would benefit from more practice in attunement. And it's kind of just like, the presence of mindfulness and awareness and, not picking up on the subtle nonverbal communication from our partner, from a place of fear, but more like curiosity and interest and wanting to develop that deeper understanding of them.
Mm-hmm. This is so good. I'm loving this. So what are some ways for couples to reconnect and feel intimate outside of sex? We'll get to the whole sexual reintroduction, but I think first, as you were saying, they need to have that safety and attunement before they can get there. So what are some ways? If someone's listening, they're like, okay, I agree. Give me ways to do this. What are some ways?
Yes. So there's lots of ways, and creativity, as we know, is kind of helps with our nervous system and gets our nervous system out of fight or flight. So I always suggest for clients to sit down and brainstorm together in ways that this could happen. Relationship rituals are signature moments between a couple that develop as time passes and as attunement becomes stronger. And the key to developing relationship rituals is understanding what each other's nervous systems need. Is it energized space or quiet, low energy? Is it touch or is it distance? And developing a few rituals for emotional connection and rituals for conflict and repair help to nurture the emotional health of a couple. And when we nurture the emotional health, we nurture the intimacy. Mm-hmm. So rituals can look like what you do during greetings or partings, how you celebrate or how you hold space for loss. It could look like what you do in the mornings, and in the evenings, it could look like weekly responsibilities and holiday traditions or conflicts and connections. And it can integrate activities such as one of the key activities on my list lately has been cold plunges and other activities that help with nervous system regulation. It could be reading audiobooks or listening to audiobooks and podcasts together. It could be the 90-second hug and the 6-second kiss that the Gottmans recommend. It could be chatting about your hopes, your dreams, and your goals together, or exercising together, or dancing together. Or one of the ones that I find very sensual and creates a lot of oxytocin in the activity is hair brushing or holding each other in the shower or in the bath, or one of my other favorites is breathwork practice.
My mind is still in the cold plunges. I got behind everything else. I'm like, oh, she's up in Canada. You're up in Canada, right? Is that right?
Yes, yeah.
I'm like, oh, Canadians. Like in the cold plunge. That's impressive. But I could see how a ritual, even if it brings sadness to my heart about cold plunging, anything that you do together, and I could see that kind of like, as you say cold plunge, I'm like the giddiness of like, are we going to do it? And then you do it and you're like, ah. Yes. So I could see how that could create like fun and bonding.
Yeah. It's the playfulness. It's the, adrenaline association too.
Definitely.
Similar to, going to scary movies or going to amusement parks. Something like a cold plunge is like, okay, we get to see each other in maybe bathing suits, which maybe we haven't had the opportunity to do in a long time, but it's in a safe environment where like, I'm not initiating sex with you right now, but also we're cheering each other on and we're cheerleading each other and we're seeing how strong and resilient each other actually are.
Yeah. My family and my husband he lived in Colorado for a while. So he started rock climbing, and then my kids got involved with that. And recently he talked me into doing it, and we're doing a rock climbing gym, but I feel like there has been more fun and playfulness in the relationship because he's really helped me, especially overcome. The first time I got to the top of the wall and I looked down and I was terrified to let go of the wall. He's like, just let go. I'm like, I can't. So I climbed halfway down and then let go. And then just as I got more confident, having him there kind of cheering me on, I would always say, trust the equipment. Then I held the rope and came down. But having him there and supporting, and then I'm watching him practice his climbs, it really does add something, I guess, back to almost like that dating period before family and kids, and a reminder of like why we're in this together. So I really can appreciate the list that you offered.
Yeah. And I'm sure seeing him so confident in the environment was also very,
it's very appealing.
Made him more desirable. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's fun. All right. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk about how to reintroduce sex and sensuality. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Okay, so we are back. So we talked about attunement, really understanding each other. We talked about ways to reconnect before introducing sex, so outside of sex. So let's start to talk about how do new parents navigate reintroducing sex and sensuality to their relationship?
Yeah, it's like, here's the theory, but how do we apply it now? Yeah. So, when a client comes to me and claims that their relationship is suffering in the postpartum period due to lack of sex and intimacy with their partner, there are a few things on my checklist that I have to inquire about. So first, I clear the air about the arbitrary 6-week go ahead from the physicians. And I say, you do what you need to do when you feel like you need to do it. And 6 weeks has nothing to do with them knowing about sex and your body and what you're ready for. Mm-hmm. And then I ask them about their birth experience. So if there has been birth trauma, it will be important for the couple to both individually and as a system break down and move through the healing process of birth trauma. If obstetric violence took place, the birthing partner's body will have to develop a level of trust from all outsiders, and perhaps themselves again too. And as we know on a cellular level, trauma becomes imprinted into the body, and there can be a stuckness in the womb after birth trauma. A dissociation between felt sense or memories of pleasure can often happen. So working with narratives and somatic and body work can often be the gate to unleashing a lot of that stuckness. Mm-hmm. And after the birth conversation, I go into the emotional safety of the relationship, which we've kind of already chatted a little bit about. Mm-hmm. And after that, I would talk about identity. Has this person taken the time to relearn who they are and the kind of intimacy their body craves? Needs may have shifted. And stepping into parenthood can ignite the desire to be in the presence of different forms of energy. When you become a parent, your needs from your partner are going to shift in a lot of ways. And for a lot of birthing people, that's strong, steady, confident leadership in their partner. How does their partner like to be touched? How do you like to be touched? How do they like to be spoken to? Where do this person's passions pull them? Has this person learned to self-pleasure? Because before we even introduce partnered pleasure, we really have to think about self-pleasure and how to navigate that, especially in the postpartum period when the relationship with the body probably has shifted.
Mm-hmm.
And then speaking of passions, what kind of creative or active outlets does this person have to move stress through their body, from expressive arts to exercise? And this, we have to focus on the stress response cycle completing itself. And then after identity, I moved to perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. And like you had said, depending on where you are, 1 in 7 moms experience symptoms of depression and anxiety during the postpartum period. And if we tackle this from a root cause perspective, it could be burnout. It could be hormones. It could be sleep deprivation. It could be lack of nutrition. It could be birth trauma and PTSD. It could be unhealthy relationships, or it could be pre-existing issues. So once we kind of understand how or if the PMADs are showing up in the body, we kind of have to navigate sex from that perspective as well. Like how dissociated from your body are you, if you are at all? And sex and vulnerability happen in ideal climates within the mind and body, meaning sex, pleasure, and adventure are all kind of at the top of this hierarchy of needs, almost like a Maslow's hierarchy. And the base is comprised of the rest, followed by, nutrition, time for self, sense of purpose, relationship maintenance kind of coming in second from the top. And the foundation of the hierarchy, the very base, if that isn't being met, then you can kind of bet your bottom dollar that sex and intimacy are going to be hard to come by. Mm-hmm. So we really need to establish a strong foundation of health before we can move to this ideal place of pleasure and adventure.
Yeah. I have to tell you, I've done a fair amount of podcasts. This has come up several times, and I really, really appreciate how you laid that out. And I think those listening will probably relate as well. And then maybe even that can open a conversation with their partners. So, people may want to get to sex, but if they don't have that foundation and all the other needs met, getting there just feels unavailable, I would suspect, for a lot of folks.
Yeah, there's no footings to get to the top.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and then we all know that medication comes with side effects. There's no medication that really doesn't have side effects. And when it comes to a lot of medication, low libido is extremely common as a side effect. And it does have a numbing effect, meaning there could possibly be disconnection from emotions that make us human, that allow us for our moments of emotional intimacy, but the medication could be protecting us from something darker and deeper. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying by any means come off your medication in order to have sex, but I am saying that if your postpartum sex and intimacy are suffering, medication could be a possible suspect as to why that's happening. And so once you can identify that, you can kind of find creative ways around it. And then finally, pelvic floor issues. So from connective tissues to emotional and physical traumas, the body can guard itself, right? You know this is your realm, and it's going to be, a body that's too tense or doesn't want to receive intimacy of any kind is going to project that. And physically guarding looks like tense and rigid muscles and fascia.
And that's going to be painful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even like prolapse or surgical recovery could also be causing pain and discomfort that might get ignored.
Mm-hmm.
So introducing the physical act of sex is a slow and steady process for anyone who has been experiencing any disconnection from their body. And using something called the sensate focus method, you can explore different stages of touch and surrender until you're able to work your way towards more vulnerable sexual experiences.
Well, you touched on something a couple times that came up in my conversation with my postnatal students recently, that when I brought this up, there's a lot of conversation about it, but two things that came up mainly. One, we can address in each. A lot of the moms, they identified as moms, said they just felt so overtouched. And then another one said, a couple of people, is like, it's a body that they don't recognize, because where they were before their baby, and then they got used to their pregnant bodies and then their postpartum bodies, they're starting to understand it, but it feels very unrecognizable. And then a third thing that popped in my head as you were talking, one of my friends who would listen, so I'll keep her identity quiet, she said she was having sex with her husband, and all of a sudden she had the milk release effect, and her breast just like squirt out. She's like, it showered him, and she's like, and we're done. Like, it just, and then she said she learned after, like, she has to wear a bra with, the nursing pads. But all those things can be a barrier for a lot of folks. Can you address some of those things?
Yeah, I think that for people who have a complex relationship with their body before becoming pregnant, the postpartum experience and maybe even the pregnancy experience can be overwhelming and not feeling like they're prepared for the feelings that come up. And there's not really a lot of normalizing of any of this outside of, the odd influencer who's telling you to love your curves and love your stretch marks and be proud of them. There's not a lot of conversation around, intrusive thoughts or kind of like more of a dissociative experience in your body. And, for the individuals who have experienced any kind of body related trauma, whether that's, physical assault or sexual trauma, this is going to be something that they're going to be continually working on. It's not just going to, go away one day. But I don't think that there is one recipe that can be applied to the majority of these situations when it comes to like, how do you navigate your body? I think that relearning your body is a huge part of the process, and diving deep into any kind of limiting beliefs you have around beauty and self-worth. And, I'm really loving talking more with clients too, who are willing to talk about it. This archetype of, maiden, mother, crone, and how our modern society embodies these very rigid images and stereotypes of what it means to be a maiden and what it means to be a mother and what it means to be a crone, and the disconnect between motherhood and sexuality, and how are our partners maybe subconsciously feeding into this narrative too. And if you were told from a young age that the milk ejection was something that was sensual and beautiful and wonderful and to be expected during orgasm, and our society embraced it as a wonderful thing and beautiful feedback from your body, then I think that women in general would experience a much different outcome, or maybe less shame around if that were to happen for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what about the overtouch? Especially for second or third time where they might have a toddler and then a newborn and then they're just constantly, not just touch, but constantly giving to their kids.
Yes. So I have a 6-year-old and twin 2-year-old. So,
so you know what I'm saying.
yes. And I breastfed them until they were 20 some odd months, and still co-sleep with my 6-year-old. So being touched out, is such an interesting experience because on one end of the spectrum, you love your kids so much and you've devoted to particular interactions and particular parenting styles, perhaps that, and reinforce you wanting to be with them and wanting them to have access to you when they need, but then feeling this visceral response to being touched, even by them, not even just by your partner, but by them in some points during the day. And understanding yourself and understanding that perhaps you are someone who needs more space and needs more time, and your nervous system hasn't quite come down from the experience of birth, and your nervous system hasn't quite come down from the immediate postpartum experience. And perhaps this response to both your partner and your children has a lot to do with regulation and how many opportunities in your day do you have to self-soothe? How many opportunities in your day do you have to have your partner co-regulate with you? Because that's still super important, even as adults. Sometimes we think of co-regulation as being just for children, but if our partners are bringing steady, predictable energy into our life, then they are an amazing source of co-regulation for us. And so how many times in a day are you making a point to do the things that tell your body and tell your brain and tell your nervous system that you're actually safe, so that they're not interpreting touch from safe people as threats?
That makes a lot of sense. So circling a little bit back, we started to talk a bit about the pelvic floor and prolapse and pain. What about, because if someone had a vaginal birth, that area did go through a little trauma. So some people might feel very fearful about sex. I know one thing a lot of people explain to me is like they're fearful of their first poop after giving birth because their pelvic floor is very raw, but I think they can also have that fear of sex. What would you say to help someone get past that fear?
I would say that before sex of any capacity is explored, that the couple find an outlet to help process and understand everything that took place, even if it wasn't traumatic, even if they just need a place to debrief. Debrief is part of the human experience. We debrief after meetings. We will probably have a short debrief after this podcast. So just like creating the expectation that debrief is important and sharing stories and sharing experiences is important. But particularly if there has been trauma, a safe space to gain more information about how the trauma is impacting their conscious and subconscious realities. And once a birthing partner becomes more trauma informed, I would suggest integrating aspects of the sensate focus method as well. But I just think that one thing that our society is lacking from individual to systemic is just a baseline of being trauma informed, and just not even having to call it trauma informed, just interacting with people and systems on a regular basis that embodies this human experience, this gentle experience, not a cookie cutter curated we would prefer curated, client-centered, customer-centered, person-centered, human-centered experience. So, when it comes to apprehension around sex because of pain, this is just kind of an indicator to the individuals that there needs to be, we're jumping too far ahead here.
That makes a lot of sense.
Fear, we don't want to ever push past fear when it comes to our bodies. And I know fear comes up for a lot of individuals when in the realm of labor and delivery as well. And when we tune into trusting our bodies, how can we listen to our bodies? How can we shut out the rest of the world and trust our bodies and not do the things that we think that others expect of us? Meet other people's needs, meet other people's expectations, so that we really can hear what our body is asking from us. And when we can integrate that skill set, that introception, then we can go as slow as we need to go. And that might mean just, rubbing your partner's legs for the first few weeks. And it might mean, just spooning for the next few weeks, and just very slow introduction to the experience is important.
That is really great. Thank you so much. So to start to wrap up, is there any part of this conversation I haven't asked about that you want to dip into?
Oh gosh, no, I think that your questions have been absolutely amazing for sure.
Thank you. All right. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, think about one tip or piece of advice you would like to offer new or expectant parents. We'll be right back.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Okay, we are back. So what is one tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer new or expectant parents?
I can never answer these questions when it says just one. My brain goes to, don't limit me to just one. There's so much. When we think about improving our ability to be intimate, we need to hone in on our emotional safety skills and ensure that our partners are safe for us and we are safe for them, that even with conflict, which is normal and healthy, that we're able to repair and find refuge within the safety of our partners. So yes, there are amazing things that add convenience to new parents' lives, but we need to be spending more resources on investing into the support needed when baby comes. So that might mean finding meal prep services, delivery services, or outsourcing to your neighborhood, to your subdivision, to your people. That might look like postpartum doulas, ensuring that the birthing person's needs are met nutritionally and that they are given the space to process their birth experience and bond with baby, but also being able to ensure that their partner is aware and educated on what their role is in all of this, and knowing what expectations have been communicated before baby arrives and ideally before conception. And to top it all off, I would say, birth advocacy skills are the entrance into all of this. If we have a couple who feels confident in the birth outcome that they want to see happen, or feels confident in their ability to advocate for their non-negotiables, or just the birthing partner who feels very confident to say to perceived authority figures, this isn't happening, you need to listen to my partner, my partner's not being respected. I think that is the first step in all of this. and putting resources and energy into the healing and the recovery once baby comes instead of the things.
I totally agree. And I had a big smile and nodding my head like an idiot as you're like, postpartum doula, like, yes to all this. And then you're about the advocacy. It's hard. I'm going to say it is very hard to speak up for the partners. I'll think also as someone who used to be a doula, actively, that was something that while it was never my place it was a fine line because I could get kicked out of the situation. So I had to be really mindful of how I spoke, but sometimes I had to kind of plant seeds for the partner because they're having their own experience and it can be really hard for them to speak up. So that's why I'm all about, like I said, bring in a team, bring in a supportive team. So I really agree with everything you said there. So where can people find your work?
My website. So mindonline.ca is my website. And unfortunately, I spend far too much time on Instagram, which is mindonlinetherapy.ca. And I'm sure this podcast will pop up with a bunch of other ones that I've been on as well. So, what I love about being on different podcasts is that each host asks questions in a different way. And so even though the topic might feel a little bit repetitive, the answers and the way the questions are asked seem all very unique. And so little tidbits are found within each experience.
Well, I've really enjoyed speaking with you, and I know that our community is going to get quite a bit out of this conversation. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Deb. I am so honored to have been a part of this.
Thank you.
This has been an episode of Yoga Birth Babies, produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. I'm Deb Flaschenberg. Thanks for listening.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.